let's discuss my keyboard live rig, shall we? After concerts, I sometimes get questions like, how does your keyboard setup actually work, or how do you run the band's show? I'm using 3 synthesizers at the moment. The Korg MS-2000 has accompanied me since 20 years now, the Phantom 6 from Roland, and for Cinder Torpedo gigs I'm also bringing the Korg MS-20 in the new full-scale release. The Korg MS-2000 is my go-to synth for all cutting-edge sounds. It's an analog modeling synth that I bought firsthand in the year 2000, and it's actually the big brother of the famous and still in production Microkorg. It has almost 1 knob per function, which is very important to me because I do fine-tuning of the sounds during the live show, and I used to call my custom patches, but then tweak and modify them a lot during a song. It has a vocoder, which is also very important for our song Polaroid Pictures, and for this I customized my synth a little bit by inserting a little microphone plug on the front face. This originally came later in the MS-2000B edition in black in year 2003. Let me show you some demo patches.
Polaroid picture.
So the nice thing is that with the Microkorg you can get the same sounds, but actually the patch management with this device is horrible. All I do at the moment is I make a full SysX dump of the synthesizer into my SysX library and software, and that's all. I used to play real Rhodes, but you know, I'm also getting older, and together with the fly case it was really heavy duty item. And I also used to break a lot of tines because I'm hitting the keyboard so hard. Intermediately I moved to the Yamaha CP4, which is also a great stage keyboard, but last year I replaced it to the favor of the Roland Phantom. The Roland Phantom convinced me with the flexible master keyboard capabilities and the concepts behind the new Zen Core sound engine. During the production of our new album Army of Beauties, it also became obvious that I will need to extend my live sound palette, because a real Juno and a Poly 6 borrowed from a friend became used a lot within the production. So it was even greater that Over the time, Roland managed to include additional models like the Juno 106, Jupiter 8 and SH101 simply by upgrading the firmware, and the recent organ model derived from the famous VK engine sounds also great. Today the Phantom is much more than it was when I bought it last year, which I appreciate a lot. The built-in CV gate connections, there are actually 2 of them, are also a neat way to integrate my modular. And last but not least, it has a vocoder too. The Phantom case is also used as a desk on a second double-braced extend for computer, audio interface and Korg MS-20FS. The Korg MS-20FS is the newest addition to my rig. I used it during the last live show and it just sounded so great. The audio output of the MS-20 is routed through Phantom input number 1 to add some delay. And this way, as the song tempo is stored within each scene, the delay is always in sync, even though the effect itself is stored on system level. So the Phantom also needs to replace my Rhodes, as I said, and this is why on the first patch, which is nearest to the keyboard, I can call my default Rhodes patch. And in this patch I bring in a dry Rhodes sound, but also a dry key off Rhodes sound for more realistic sounding. Upon release, the key off is called. Make this a little bit louder. Do you hear that? Yeah, I like that. The Rhodes patch is routed through sub-out 1 of the Phantom, and from there I'm using a 20 dB padding cable to connect it to my pedalboard. The Rhodes signal is sent into an Electro-Harmonix pitchfork, then into the Ibanez TS7 tube screamer, then into the Line 6 MM4 modulation designer. Then we have the Morley Pro Series 2 War and Volume combined pedal, and the last piece in the chain is the Moore Re-Echo Pro delay effect. So the Re-Echo Pro is just a handy delay effect pedal, and I need to tap the left pedal to get the right timing. With the Morley wah pedal, I can just extend my sound palette. So if I switch on the tube screamer, for example, and I enable the wah effect, together with the modulation pedal, this gets even a little bit more interesting. Then the MM4 is just for modulation and a little bit more punch. The Ibanez TS7 is just for additional harmonics and scream. I primarily use it for the Senior Torpedo music. For additional fuzz, I also have the Game Changer plasma coil. But I leave the effect knob on this bad boy in the voltage booster setting to keep the tonal shape musical. The Electro-Harmonix pitchfork is connected to an expression pedal, so I can use it for whammy style pitch and detuning effects. Unfortunately, the whole analog stuff tends to create a lot of noise. This is why I have this noise canceller pedal always with me for emergency situations. Maybe I have to replace the board and get rid of disturbances and noises someday. I could also replace some stuff with the capabilities of the Phantom and rid additional noise sources at the same time, but as said, I started with a real Fender Rhodes back in the days, and now I just got so much used to have the pedalboard, so I just can't get low of it, at least yet. Then we have a computer on stage. This is my trusty 2007 MacBook Pro. What can I say? Show me any Windows laptop that lasts over 14 years. This version has a flap on the back to easily access battery and hard drive. And yes, it's the third battery now, that's fine. And switching to a Samsung Evo 1TB SSD really gave the computer a second birth. Alright, we need a computer on stage. This is part of our live concept since the beginning in 2001. At that time, using laptops live on stage was still a matter of serious doubts for most musicians. We started to use an elder Toshiba laptop that days with a license of Ableton Live 2, which I had won on the Frankfurter Musikmesse in the year 2000. Together with the audio interface, this is the centerpiece of the setup, running Ableton Live, Mainstage and Q-Lite Controller Plus. We will have a deeper look into the software setup later in the video. The audio interface is a Moto 828 MK3, which is built into my rack case. The Moto is collecting and mixing all the sound sources. The pedalboard is connected to instrument input 1, MS-2000 connected to analog input 1 and 2. The Phantom is connected to analog input 3 and 4. Now you might be asking, why not using an USB cable for MIDI and audio? Well, the MacBook Pro is too old to recognize the Roland vendor driver, so I need to stick to the class compliant mode for now, and this is why I only transfer MIDI using USB. Then the audio interface is also sending MIDI information via Ableton Live to the MS-2000 synthesizer. You might be asking, what about that ADAT input-output loop over here? I'll explain that in more depth later when we come to the software setup. Let's talk about monitoring. The Rhodes piano output is sent to main out left. Using a custom-built reamp box, I send the signal to my Fender Twin Reverb Silverface, which is not here today. I use this one live only on special occasions though. because it's too heavy and I think I already have enough stuff to carry around. We have been hearing just the dry signal directly into the mixer today. My own headphone mix is routed to the phone's output 1, which is the same as the main output. So I sent this to the Samson CQ8 headphone amplifier, which is also racked into my case, and I'm sending synth and click to one side, Rhodes to the other. But if Rhodes is hardly panned to the left and the rest is hardly panned to the right, how do I manage to merge the sounds back into both ears? Well, this is accomplished by the headphone amplifier because it has this 2-channel mode button which brings both sides together. My drummer is then provided with a 2-channel feed of click and Ableton signal using phone's jack 2, and he uses his own mixing console to customize the sounds to his needs. Next, the analog outputs 1 to 8 are connected to a multi-core cable. The signals provided are channels 1 and 2, Ableton Live, channels 3 and 4, Synth 1, which is MS-2000, channels 5, 6 are Synth 2, which is the Phantom, together with the MS-20, because MS-20 is routed through the Phantom. On channel 7 we have Rhodes, and channel 8 is Click, but this is only optional, because if we have a direct connection via phone's jack 2, then the 8th click channel is not needed. Let's check the input signals on the desk. So 1 and 2 is laptop, together with the click on number 8. Then we have the synthesizer. We have Phantom, MS-2000, both MS-2000 also on 5 and 6, the Rhodes on number 7, and there you go. So with my pre-mixed and balanced outputs, I make a lot of stagehands and FOH technicians very happy. Let's talk about the software setup. I'm using Ableton Live, and we are always working in arrangement view. I need to switch patches during a song, and clip view would be too much of a hassle to me. So that's why most of Ableton Live controllers are of no use to me. In the first track we have a click automation. Of course we could also use the internal click, and we actually do. I show you how. But it's even nicer to have those automated clips here, so when the song is over the click stops as well, right? Because it's completely programmed and aligned with the song. My drummer says the Ableton Live click, this is the best click you can have. So let's give it to him. How do we do it? Well, I have this drum rack here, and I brought up the original metronome sounds from Ableton Live. You can easily find them if you open the package context of Ableton Live. You go to Contents, App Resources, Miscellaneous, Metronome, Samples, and there you have it, Metronome and Metronome Up. And this is how it sounds. Then I have locators per track, so I can easily jump forward and backward and directly to the beginning of the next song. So if I'm here, and let's say the song is now over, boom, I jump to the next one, and the show can continue. I have 2 optional effect tracks, which I only use occasionally. Then we have a vocal track, which we only use for rehearsals. So if we are playing a song and we want to hear what would the singer actually do, and we are only rehearsing in a limited number of musicians, then I can easily switch on this track and I have some vocals available. Then we have the song playbacks themselves, which are all pre-organized and pre-rendered. And then we come to the remote control of my keyboard rig. So I have patch automation for the MS-2000, which is simply done by sending program change commands to the MIDI port of the Moto M828 MK3, and I'm using channel 9 for the MS-2000. Then I do the same for the Phantom. With the Phantom, things are actually a little bit different, but you just need to know how it really works. So when you want to send a program change, which means it's a scene change for the Phantom, then you have to always send bank number 86, and then it depends on which of the internal banks, A, B, C or D, you are using your patches. So I am always patching my own sounds in bank number D. This means bank number D means sub out number 4, sub number 4. And then you go ahead with a one-based numbering, like the first patch is, so D001 is on program number 1, etc. and so on. So if I hit start on this track here, then Phantom is automatically called with scene number D007. For the MS-20, of course, I don't need a patch management, but in the songs where I use it, it is completely MIDified. So I only have a certain amount of arpeggios programmed in. Let's just, as an example, take this song here. So I'm now moving the filter cutoff by hand, but the actual notes are triggered using this MIDI clip, and it's directly sent out to the synthesizer using USB output. And then we have something very interesting, which is actually important for our Grundrauschen show, where we have some lights automation. So in this track, this is actually not DMX, but it is MIDI information, and we use this automation graphs here for our live show. I will explain this in a little bit. And last but not least, one of the most recent additions is that I'm working to replace Mainstage by a new live rack directly in Ableton Live. And here I can use what they call chains to switch between. This sound is now coming from the first patch in this instrument rack. So Mainstage is actually extending my sound palette by a lot, and I can reuse custom Apple Logic presets from the original song production. Before Phantom, I used my Akai MPK Mini MK2 to play the sounds and optimized patch switching as well. But as said, as one of the next steps, I plan to rebuild my Mainstage patches directly in Ableton Live using the instrument racks and chain selectors. This way I don't need to run Mainstage in the background all the time. So CueMix FX is the software that comes with the Moto interface for your signal routing options, and it also has some additional DSP processing built in. But I have had huge trouble with this driver because by default the sources that are coming from the computer are not available in your mixing setup. You have up to 8 mixes which you can customize to your needs. But how to deal with computer sources sent via Firewire? What you can actually do, and this is the added patch loop that I have shown in the slides before, you can go ahead to your Moto audio setup and then you activate the input bank A and output bank A as optical ADAT options. And this way, these ADAT ports will become available in your output configuration within the DAW. And that is starting from channel 15 to channel 22. Those are actually your 8 ADAT outputs where you can send audio information to. And those ADAT inputs will appear in your mixing console for additional routing to wherever you want them to go. We have discussed about my 8 channel outputs and also the monitoring and the additional mixing for the drummer using phones jack number 2. And this way also the computer signals are available as a source for your mixing and routing. Let's come to the final topic, which is the light rig. Now this is optional setup we are using for the Grundrauschen band only. The centerpiece of the light show is a Botex MPX 405 light dimmer, and it comes with the neat feature that enables the dimmer to be driven by MIDI, so no DMX gear is actually required. We use an additional USB audio interface to route the MIDI information because it turned out that the Moto interface had severe timing issues running both light and audio information through its single MIDI port. In our case, we used the good old M-Audio Fast Track Pro, which used to be our main live audio interface. As I am not using the MS-20 for Grundrauschen, this frees up the required USB port on the MacBook Pro. Note we are using a very long MIDI cable between audio and MIDI interface and the dimmer, so the dimmer can be put near to the sun strips and the Meteor. Of course, we bring some extra power cords for them as well. To go ahead with the software setup, you need to prepare your environment a little bit. So I'm talking Mac specific only for now. First thing you do is you go to your audio and MIDI setup, and here you can create a new AIC bus. I call it simply AIC bus number 1. The name is not so important, it's just important that the operating system provides this AIC bus to communicate between applications. Secondly, in Ableton Live, you can go ahead to your MIDI setup, and here this new AIC driver, namely AIC bus 1, needs to be activated as an output, sending light automation information to the AIC driver. And then we are using a software which is called Cue Light Controller Plus. First thing, you create a universe, we call it universe number 1, and here you will find the Botex, the dimmer, and the dimmer is addressed using channel numbers 1 to 4, and then you can go to the channel groups, and here we have the first 3 channel groups assigned to dimmers 1, 2 and 3, and then the last channel, number 4, is assigned for the Meteor. So that means any information we send to the sun strips is assigned using channels 1, 2 and 3, and the Meteor is just addressed by channel number 4. Under functions, I also found out that we just need to create a simple scene. I call it Grundrauschen, and it just needs to be activated to have everything running. On the inputs and outputs, you will find your universe number 1, and here you need to make some assignments. The input that is checked here is the MIDI IAC driver we just created, which is nothing else than a virtual MIDI port if you want. And then the output is sent to the Fast Track Pro. But within the Fast Track Pro configuration, we need to take care that we are sending to a certain MIDI channel, because the Votex is set to channel number 2. So the Fast Track Pro also needs to convert incoming information to channel number 2. And from here we do not send control change information per default, but we convert the control change information into note velocity information. And having this in place, you can go ahead to your simple workspace. Let me activate a view to the light rig. And now if I pull up the fader of channel number 1, you can already see that Sunstrip number 1 is activated. On fader number 2 I have Sunstrip number 2. Excuse the pumping of my camera. This is very bright actually. I think they consume about 600 watts each. And on channel number 3 we have Sunstrip number 3, and the Meteor is activated by using channel number 4. And as you can see, this takes a little bit until it is really turned on. And having this in place, we can now switch back to our live session. Let me pull out this song here. As I activate the clip, you can already see that the live rig goes into a certain state. And if I play now the music and I am going to skip a bit through to the more interesting parts, you will see that the live rig is immediately showing what is going on in the clip optimization. Maybe before I do so, let me show you that within the DMX clip here, we have two targets. We are sending information to channel number 1, which is actually the Sunstrip information, and we are also sending this information here to channel number 2, which is just activating the Meteor at a certain part in the song. And that's how that works. Let me add that I'm currently working on a simplification of this light setup, at least from the software side. With this approach I would get rid of the Q-Lite controller software and also of the IAC bus. The whole idea here is that I am simply creating an Ableton Live MIDI effect rack where I can put all the optimization parameters, and then I'm only controlling the modulation of the rack instead of the notes themselves, which makes things a lot easier. For our Losing Colors video shoot, I prepared a new light animation using this technique. And here you can see I created several clips with individual modulation information. So with out high, for example, I control what is the maximum light amount that is going out. How much randomization do I want to see per sound strip in this case, and if I want to have the arpeggiator on or off. In this case the arpeggiator would be off, so I can simply run this clip and it creates a static light with medium luminosity. Just like this. I can move on to this clip here, and the MIDI notes here are turning the sound strips on with each occasion of a certain chord. Easy. We may need to understand the whole idea here is that the Botex dimmer is just reacting on MIDI note numbers starting with 0. So the lowest note number is actually creating a light event to the first dimmer, which is the first sound strip. Second note is the second sound strip. The D-2 is the third sound strip, and so on. Here I created a clip with some random animation. On each quarter note. Here they are activated all together. And in this clip I create an arpeggiated output. And the arpeggiation style is controlled by this setting here in the arpeggiator. Maybe also interesting to show, there is this bridge part here, which you may want to see.
Don't claim a thing you're not using.
So with each note a certain dimmer is turned on.
I'm gonna taste of your swell. You got me so good, so good.
And now we look back.
Let's stop the mental abusing. These hearts ain't striking the heat.
And there you have it. A swift rundown of my keyboard rig in its current state. I'm aware this was not Eurorack specific at all, but I had in mind making this video since a long time, and it actually frees up my head for new topics. Let me know in the comments if this video was useful to you or not, and leave your feedback and questions. I'm more than happy to get in touch. See you. Bye.